أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Dear friends, welcome to Idea Foundation Forum. Today we will discuss the research topic Qur'an and protection of human rights. The man was created for submission to the will of Allah. What is the will of Allah? Briefly speaking, it is to establish the sovereignty of Allah and well-being of the humanity. There is another way of understanding the will of Allah. The man was appointed the vicegerent of Allah at the time of his creation. There are two obligations attached to this trust of vicegerency. One is the complete and unwavering allegiance to the authority and commands of Allah, and other is to adhere, to pursue, to follow to the nature of Allah and perform what Allah does by emulating His great attributes focused on the well-being of humanity. At the time of man's creation, his rival creatures, jinn and the angels, had already proved their perfect allegiance to Allah's authority and perfection of worship. But they had unidirectional competence, one-sided, unidirectional competence to comply with Allah's commands, while the man was accorded a free personality. Divine spirit, and knowledge with the competence of making choice between obedience or disobedience in performing his assigned role during his stay in this world. Making choice. Man has two choices, either to do it or don't do it. Thus, these were the distinctive attributes of the man that made him superior to other creatures. In lecture number 3, we designed the above two obligations attached to the grand trust into the purpose of the man's creation, which is reproduced as I am repeating it, to establish a just, peaceful and perpetually growing, materially as well as intellectually, a society, ensuring complete submission to Allah's will and well-being of the humanity. Thus ensuring well-being of the humanity or protection of human rights is indispensable obligation of the man under the Qur'anic constitution. The man is not simply desired to perform the acts of well-being of the humanity or human rights himself. Rather, he is directed to establish them in the society with full vigor, persistence, and determination, as it has been laid down in Ayat 3 of Surah Al Asr. In the remaining discourse, we will look at Islam's framework for the well-being of the humanity or protection of human rights in some detail. So, dear friends, Please recall earlier lectures wherein we discussed that the man was created on Allah's nature of Allah, and adorned, decorated with the divine spirit and knowledge to emulate Allah's great attributes, focused on creating an environment of equity, justice, peace, freedom, growth and progress for the collective well-being of the humanity. The objective was to establish an equalitarian human society. While Iblis, claiming superiority of his matter, did not appreciate the divine intent behind the man's creation, and unlike the angels, he neither repented on his misconduct nor accepted change in the divine order as a result of man's creation. It was Iblis' dilemma. Iblis also, due to his ego, short-sightedness or determinist attitude, did not care the common interest of his community and preferred to cherish his individualism, not caring for his society. For this attitude, Maulana Rumi and Iqbal called materialism, determinism, and individualism as the symbols of Iblis. Such mindset of Iblis and his accomplices is aimed to deprive the man of his great gift of free, dynamic, progressive, and humanitarian personality. The Qur'an, on the other hand, rejects this rigid mindset and encourages, motivates progressivism, dynamism, freedom, collective interest, and equalitarianism in the man's life on the pattern of the universe as revealed in Ayat 5 to 9 and 29 of Surah Al Rahman. This is, in fact, a broad agenda for the protection of human rights and progress that has been the hallmark of the prophetic mission, reached its finality with revelation of the Qur'an on the last messenger of Allah, Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So, dear friends, the prophetic mission pleaded, advocated individuals' rights netted into the collective interest of the human society to ensure its sustainable well-being and growth. Both sustainability of well-being and growth, progress. The mission promoted faith, equity, justice, and fair play universally. Universally means locally, nationally, and globally. This is universally. That could permeate, that could breed peace, order, social cohesion, and common good, and consequently synergize human efforts for collective uplift of the society. History tells us that it had been preference of self-interest over social or collective interest of the society that had been the predominant cause of human sufferings. Materialism and self-interest or individualism promoted concentration of wealth and power in a few hands that happen to be the flesh and blood of socio-economic evils and the greatest threat to social equity, justice, and public ethics. It led to breed, it led to perpetuate, it led to promote elitist groups in the society to rule the masses ruthlessly and control the state resources for their own benefit through exclusive institutions. Exclusive institutions. It was in fact enslaving, making slaves. It was in fact enslaving the vast majorities of populations by very thin elitist minorities concentrating the politico-economic power in their hands by employing unjust, unfair, and coercive means of governance and entitlements. Masses were made to believe through the doctrine of determinism maliciously designed by politico-religious elites. Politico-religious elites. Connivance of the two segments, elitist segments of society, one the political, the other the religious. It buried the initiatives, it killed, buried the initiatives of free personality that could urge individuals to stand against injustice and fight for their rights to emerge as a formidable force of dynamic society. This was the predicament, dilemma, that the prophetic mission was supposed to reverse. So, dear friends, the prophetic mission opposed concentration of wealth and power to save humanity from socio-economic disequilibrium and socio-political divisions. The mission was a perpetual movement passed through the human generations, reminding them the obligations to the Creator, to their Creator, and to the humanity itself. It was aimed to establish equality of rights and entitlements among all the citizens without any discrimination based on socio-political and geographic distinctions, ensure adequate provision for basic needs of population, and the third, establish an environment of learning, justice, equity, and order to promote peace, freedom, and sustainable growth, focusing on collective well-being of the humanity. Let us have a brief historic view of prophetic mission to mention some antecedents, some references, some examples of the past with respect to the human rights before we focus on the human rights framework based on the Quranic teachings. So, dear friends, Hazrat Abraham, custodian of the mission to which the Judaism, Christianity, and Islam belong, disproved, rejected the socio-economic disequilibrium prevailing in his age through a historic public proclamation in the words, listen, and you shall love your neighbor as yourself. Neighbor, what is neighbor? Neighbor is not qualified on the basis of religion, nationality, caste, gender, economic status, or color. They are all neighbor of any nationality, of any religion, of any color or economic status. It makes obligatory for every follower of the Abrahamic religions to protect rights of his or her fellow beings and take care of their needs lovingly, readily, without any discrimination. The proclamation made by Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in this context was even much more revolutionary when he said, "He is not a Muslim who eats his fill when his neighbor is hungry." Hazrat Moses and Jesus also had to fight for the salvage, for the rescue of majorities of their peoples suffering from tyrannical rule or castrated, designed, established by small but powerful elites on the basis of extreme socio-political and economic disparities, inequities and discrimination on various reasons. As in the case of previous messengers, the elites of Mecca took it that Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam had come not just to change people's religious beliefs, but also the society itself, whole society. To them, to the elites of Mecca, these new ideas would threaten the established social order of Mecca based on socio-political disparities and economic disequilibrium, and thus would lead to a social revolution. Revolution for establishing a society where justice, equity, and protection of human rights would be ensured. This was the core reason for great opposition to the teachings of Qur'an by the elites of Mecca. So, dear friends, cognizant of the fact, aware of the fact that concentration of wealth was the prime source of elitist power that had been responsible for socio-economic and political disequilibrium causing major breach of human rights, the Quran has revealed revolutionary measures. The Quran has revealed revolutionary measures to dilute, reduce, eliminate concentration of wealth by diverting a substantial portion of wealth of affluent minorities to needy and deprived majorities for building socio-economic equilibrium in the society. Besides the institution of zakat, charity, and prohibition of interest, the Quran and Sunnah have imposed strict constraints against profiteering. There are hundreds of Quranic references on this matter. A few of them are displayed on the screen. However, I will quote two verses here which present an ideal proposition for devoted Muslims. These are ideal propositions. Ayat 219 of Surah Baqarah says, "When asked thee means Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when people ask Muhammad, ask you, O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, how much they are to spend, say what is beyond your needs. If you need $10, you will spend in the way of Allah the 11th dollar. So Ayat 34 and 35 of Surah At-Tawbah says, and those who hoard gold and silver, hoard means save and keep in their vest, in their chest, and spend it not in the way of Allah, give them tidings. Give them tidings means inform them of a painful punishment, the day when it will be heated in the fire. Which will be heated? Silver and gold. The day when it will be heated in the fire of hell and burned therewith. And burned therewith will be their foreheads, their flanks and their backs. Then it will be said, this gold and silver, what you hoarded for yourselves, so now taste what you used to hoard. Allahu Akbar. Eye-opener. Dear friends, the Qur'an has conditioned righteousness with ibadat and human rights both. You cannot ignore ibadat, you cannot ignore human rights. Obligations to religion and to mankind have been kept at parity. What a religion. Some Quranic references in this respect are shown on the screen. However, Ayat 177 of Surah Baqarah is quoted here to highlight significance of human rights in the scope of righteousness. Note the words. Note each of its words. Righteousness is not that you turn your faces towards the east or the west, but true righteousness is in one who believes in Allah, oneness of Allah, the last day, day of judgment, the angels, the book, and the prophets, and gives wealth in spite of love for it. Allah knows you love wealth, but you give wealth in spite of love for it to relatives, orphans. I underline orphans, the needy, the traveler, those who ask for help, and for freeing slaves. It is emancipation of slavery. And who establishes prayer and gives zakat, those who fulfill their promise when they promise, and those who are patient in poverty and hardship and during battle. Those are the ones who have been true, and it is those who are the righteous. So, to be a righteous, ibadat, faith, and human rights, all are important. Now imagine, the Qur'an has directed for well-being of orphans and emancipation of slaves about 1500 years ago. And also note, when slavery could be abolished in the enlightened Western society. So, dear friends, fair dispensation of justice is indispensable for protection of human rights and also for establishing a peaceful, free and progressive society. Allah has conditioned His love to the man only if he acts justly, if he maintains justice. Some Quranic references have been displayed on the screen in this respect. However, to highlight the desired standards of justice required from a Muslim, Ayat 135 of Surah Al Asr is quoted here. Listen. O you who believe, I mean believers. Allah means believers. Stand out firmly for justice as witness to God, even as against yourselves or your parents or your kith and kins, and whether it be against rich or poor. For God can best protect both. Follow not the lusts of your hearts, lest ye swerve. And if you distort justice or decline to do justice, verily God is well acquainted with all that you do. So, dear friends, the Qur'an gives emphasis on well-being of the humanity by balancing individual interest and collective interest. However, individual interest is preferred for the reason of operational efficiency. Individuals' rights to own property are well guarded in the Qur'an. The Qur'an has laid down detailed inheritance laws for fair distribution of an individual's property on his demise to his successors, including female members of his family. An individual blessed with free personality is personally, it's very important, is personally responsible for his or her deeds here in this world and for their accountability on the day of judgment without any intercession as detailed in the Qur'an. Have a look on the screen. Dear friends, the Qur'an has given equal rights to the man and woman in this world as well as in the life hereafter. She has been given equal rights to own property and spend it according to her will. Her right of inheritance is protected by the verses of the Qur'an. She, like the man, will be personally responsible for her deeds, for her conduct performed in this world on the day of judgment, and will find a life in the hereafter according to her deeds. In this respect, some Quranic references are displayed on the screen. Dear friends, Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam performed his last Hajj in 632, whereupon he delivered a speech known as the farewell sermon, Khutbatul Wida, summing up the message of the Qur'an. The sermon laid down a framework of human rights that overshadows the protocols of human rights initiated by the Magna Carta in 1215. I may share a few human rights highlights of the sermon here. First, regard life regard life and property of every Muslim as a sacred trust. Next, hurt no one, so that no one may hurt you. Mutual respect. Next is, you will neither inflict nor suffer any inequality. Inequality is not acceptable in the Muslim society. Next, the usury interest of the era of ignorance has been laid aside, abolished. Next is, hereditary distinctions have been laid aside forever. Treat your women well, be kind to them, for they are your partners and committed helpers. All humans are equal and free. No slavery, no class stratification. All humans are equal and free. Arab has no superiority over non-Arab, and white has no superiority over black. Muslims are brothers to each other, and together they constitute one brotherhood. So, dear friends, great standards of religious tolerance and religious freedom to non-Muslims were established when, having got liberated Arab lands of the Middle East from the imperialist powers, Romans and Sassanids, Persians, Hazrat Umar took over the city of Jerusalem in April 637. He signed a pact known as the Umayyad Covenant, granting guarantees of civil and religious liberties to the Christians. When Hazrat Umar returned the keys of the Holy Church to Sophronius, Patriarch of Jerusalem, he invited Hazrat Umar to pray Zuhr prayer in the church. Hazrat Umar declined. Why declined? Fearing that accepting the invitation might endanger the church's status as a place of Christian worship, and that Muslims might break the treaty and turn the church into a mosque. It establishes this covenant, this commitment of Hazrat Umar establishes the principle that Islam gives preferred value to human character, not to a piece of land. So, dear friends, much more can be said on the Islamic framework for the protection of human rights. But in view of time constraints, we conclude our discussion here. These programs are recorded both in Urdu and English. Their videos can be watched on ideafoundation.com.pk website or its YouTube channel and Facebook. Their written versions are also available on the Idea Foundation's website. Please note code number of this program, Idea 1BR32 or lecture number 141. All friends are requested to subscribe the Foundation's YouTube web channel for the benefit of this noble cause. Thank you, friends, for participation. Allah Hafiz.